people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Another look at the upcoming Tina Rupprecht versus Matsuda atomweight unification match for 3 of the 4 major titles in the atomweight division. It would seem that Germany's own Tina Rupprecht, a former minimum weight champion that has since moved down to atomweight, is on an undisputed run. 2 fights away from becoming an undisputed champion, that if she wins this fight, she only has 1 more belt to procure. Sporting a professional record of 13 wins with 1 loss and 1 draw, 3 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 15 professional bouts. Her lone defeat came at the hands of Senicia Estrada upstairs at minimum weight, and there's no shame in that.
None.
Afterwards, she moved down in weight, took on then unbeaten Bytyqi for what was Fabiana's WBC title. She won it, and now she is after 2 more against Japan's own Matsuda, who is both WBO and WBA champion, sporting a professional record of 7 wins with 1 loss and 1 draw, 1 recorded knockout, having never been knocked out in 9 professional bouts. A unified champion. If Tina wins this fight, she'll have 3 of the 4 major titles at this weight. Matsuda last saw action in January of this year against Yuko Kuroki, who she beat by way of a split decision. This will be her 2nd fight of this year. The same goes for Tina. Tina was also in action in January of this year against then unbeaten champion Bytyqi, who she beat by way of a unanimous decision to become WBC champion at this weight. This will also be her 2nd fight of this year, and the most productive year that Tina has seen in a long time, because for about 3 years now, she's been fighting once a year. Once in 2021, once in 2022, once last year, and she's already fought once. This will be her 2nd fight of this year. For perspective, Tina Rupprecht has not fought more than once in the same calendar year since 2019. That's the last time she had more than 1 fight in a calendar year. So this is a productive year for Germany's champion. Now here's where it gets interesting. When I first talked about this fight, when I first covered this story, I didn't realize Bytyqi was going to be boxing on this same show, at this same weight, against the only other champion at this weight, Yamanaka. Yamanaka, who became IBF champion at atomweight in January of this year, and she will be defending the IBF title for the first time against former champion Bytyqi. So what's interesting is that if Fabiana wins this fight and becomes a 2-time atomweight champion, that could theoretically set up a rematch between her and Tina for what would now be the undisputed crown. It could. I feel that one way or another, Tina's going to target the winner of that fight, whoever it is, whether it's Sumire or Fabiana. Though what's interesting is that so soon after losing her own title, Fabiana is afforded the chance to fight for someone else's, and that if she wins, it sets up a rematch. She's a lot more experienced as a professional than Sumire Yamanaka, the newly crowned IBF champion. Sumire sports professional record of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, 3 recorded knockouts. She's a southpaw, whereas Fabiana is an orthodox fighter. Fabiana, who sports professional record of 21 wins with 1 loss, 2 draws, 5 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 24 professional bouts. Needless to say, she's a lot more experienced than Sumire. Tail of the tape, Fabiana's always had a lot of height and length for atomweight. 5'4" isn't very tall at all in a general sense, but for an atomweight, that's actually pretty big. She's a lot taller than most of the girls in this division. You could give Fabiana decent odds to win that fight on that premise. Things are shaking, rattling, and rolling in the women's atomweight division. It's good to see it because this is one of the divisions that often gets ignored. Talk more about it as the fight date approaches. Men's junior middleweight news, a look at the situation ahead of the Tim Tszyu fight for Murtazaliev, who broke his hand a week before fighting Tim Tszyu.
What?
Bakram Murtazaliev's demolition job of Tim Tszyu appears to have been even more impressive once you assess beyond his performance at face value. The IBF junior middleweight champion knocked down Tim Tszyu 3 times in the second round and once more in the third, forcing the Australian's corner to throw in the towel. All 4 of the knockdowns came courtesy of Murtazaliev's monstrous left hook. Days after the fight, it has been revealed why the Russian was leaning on using his crushing left early and often during the first defense of his 154-pound title. Murtazaliev's head coach, Roman Kilantarian, told Boxing Scene that Murtazaliev broke his right hand during his final sparring session on October 11th and essentially entered the fight as a one-handed fighter. Our game plan was at 50% going into the fight because Bakram didn't have his right hand, Kilantarian told Boxing Scene.
He beat Tim Tszyu with one good hand?
Bakram's knuckle around his pinky was gone. You couldn't see the knuckle. We were icing his hand all week, but he didn't want to cancel the fight even though he had a broken hand. We didn't tell anyone. I told him, don't throw your right hand unless you really have to, so we focused on throwing more open right hooks instead of straight rights, only when needed. I'm sure Tszyu was expecting us to throw more right hands.
It's funny how the universe works and how all of this came into being. That the reason that Bakram was so prolific with the left hook is because he couldn't throw the straight right.
Exploiting the holes in Tim Tszyu's guard and forward momentum, his aggression, that left hook was his undoing. Kilantarian said Murtazaliev didn't throw a single right hand after suffering the injury until he started warming up in the dressing room on fight night. Kilantarian has previously trained Vanez Martirosyan and Alexander Besputin and works with the #1 ranked UFC lightweight fighter Arman, I can't pronounce that, from the KD MMA gym in Glendale, California. Kilantarian, who has coached Murtazaliev for 3 fights, including his title-clinching win against Jack Colquet in May, said that they're preparing for a flat-footed pressure fighter in Tszyu who was looking to counterpunch.
Our plan was to test his power in the first round and test his shots with aggression, said Kilantarian. Bakram came back to the corner after the first round and said, "Coach, I do not feel any of his punches."
Talk about adding insult to injury. Not only do these guys say they beat Tim Tszyu with one hand, they're basically saying he can't punch. And he's known as one of the stronger punchers in this division.
Wow.
I told him to just make sure you see the punches coming. He was able to change the fight with his one-punch power. It doesn't matter how hard the fight is. If Bakram lands, it's fireworks. A lot of people are talking about how easy the fight was, but they don't know the hard work and preparation we went through over the last 10 weeks. We were prepared for a hard war, but the final battle was easy. The future looks incredibly bright in a competitive weight division for Aegis Klimas-managed, Kathy Duva-promoted Murtazaliev. The 31-year-old from Grozny, Russia, is based in LA and looking to unify titles.
The depth of today's junior middleweight division is overshadowed by its politics.
Remove the promotional boundary lines, pick any 2 names out of a hat, and you're likely going to get a great matchup every single time in an ideal world. But this is a world where things are often less than ideal, the world of boxing. So just the other day I saw veteran trainer Robert Garcia express an interest in putting Virgil Ortiz in the ring with Bakram. Trainer Robert Garcia said he would like to have Virgil fight IBF junior middleweight champion Bakram Murtazaliev next. He believes Ortiz can beat the Russian with his style. If they fight, it won't be how Tszyu fought.
That's what Robert wants to see. That's what Robert has to say about it. But Robert's the trainer, not the manager, not the promoter, and I don't think that decision falls on him.
The name of Virgil Ortiz has become attached to 2, 3 potential fights. A Bakram Murtazaliev fight is one. A Jaron Boots Ennis fight is another. And an Errol Spence Jr. fight is yet another. But of those 3 names, who do you think Virgil's manager wants?
And his promoter.
There's a story yesterday via Michael Benson that Virgil Ortiz versus Jaron Ennis was being eyed as a possible fight for a Saudi supercard in February. To that, Rick Mirrigan was very Johnny on the spot. He dispelled that right away, saying, "We are not eyeing Boots. Ortiz and anyone in the top 5 works for a big fight, and when an offer comes along, then we will go from there. I think Ortiz versus Spence at the Dallas Cowboy Stadium becomes the biggest fight in Texas history.
Do you see?
But if someone can afford Ortiz versus Boots or Ortiz versus Crawford, then my number is on 24/7. All roads lead to Ortiz for a mega fight in this division. And bear in mind, Ortiz isn't even a champion.
Doesn't he have a intercontinental intestinal belt?
He's got the interim title, the WBC interim title, but he doesn't seem all that interested in using it to get the full champion in the ring, and the full champion is Sebastian Fundora. I haven't heard anything from Virgil, from Rick Mirrigan, or Oscar De La Hoya about pushing for a Fundora fight. The fight I do see them pushing for is a Spence fight. Just the other day I saw Oscar De La Hoya tweeting about it. Now Rick Mirrigan is talking about it. You know what time it is. So when you see that, do you get the sense that they'd want to put Virgil in the ring with Bakram Murtazaliev? Robert Garcia can think what he thinks and say what he says, but he's not the one that makes that decision. They do.
And they want Spence.
I don't expect anybody to call them out on it. That you guys are advocating for a fight with a fighter that got annihilated the last time we saw him, and that was over a year ago. Over a year later, he still doesn't have a trainer. He hasn't rebounded off the loss.
That fight with Sergei Bohachuk scared them.
And I don't care if you're from Grand Prairie, Texas, Grand Central Station, or the Grand Concourse. They're scared.
That Sergei Bohachuk fight scared them because he wasn't able to knock him out because he himself got knocked down 2 times.
You think they want to put him in the ring with an animal like Bakram Murtazaliev? Look at what he did to Tim Tszyu with one hand. Rick Mirrigan seemingly poured cold water over a potential Boots fight or a potential Crawford fight, because what they want is the moon and the stars for a fighter who wasn't a champion at 147. He's not a champion now at 154. I think he's a fun little fighter to watch.
But you can already see what kind of a conversation this is becoming.
Which is ridiculous, because Virgil Ortiz, as fun as he is to watch, he's not yet a big ticket seller. No. And they're acting like he is, all to circumvent the risks and the depth, the true depth of the junior middleweight division. Why else would you be looking at a quasi-retired fighter like Errol Spence Jr.?
I don't even know that guy's ever gonna box again.
If he is, it won't be in what remains of this year. Tenuous plans for a fight with Sebastian Fundora next year, and I wrestle with the idea that he would have sat out this long to come back against that fighter.
Okay.
But this is who Oscar wants to put in the ring with Virgil, who Rick wants to put in the ring with Virgil, and it's obvious why. That at this point, Errol is a low-hanging fruit, and that's what they're in the market for.
They don't want any of the belts. They don't want to fight with any of the champions. Bakram,
Terrence, or Sebastian, that's not what they want. And finally, another look at boxing insider Rick Glacier's insights, who says Tank Davis thinks he's the face of boxing, and he's very far from it. Davis vastly overpriced himself for the December 14th fight versus Lamont Roach, and now it's cancelled. Forget the Dan Rafael Bubbaluba that there's venue problems. Several real reporters checked. There's no venue issue. Tank Davis needed a reality check, and now he's getting one with the cancellation of his fight because he needs to adjust his thinking of his actual value. Another overpriced, pampered fighter. But this one got shut down, and rightfully so. And boxing will be better for it. Why? Because to get the kind of money that Tank's demanding, he'd have to fight only the best fighters. Enjoy your Friday knowing this.
Now, we've been all through this. The cancellation, the cover-up.
How Gervonta Davis is asking for more money than a Lamont Roach fight can get him, and how to get at that kind of money, he's going to have to fight better people. He's going to have to fight in the kind of fights that people ask him to fight in.
This next segment isn't necessarily about him so much as the undercard fighters, the fighters that likely would have fought on his undercard. WBC middleweight champion Carlos Adames said, "I just be clear, it's no matter who you are, middle boxer, I waiting for my team."
Who's next? Hey guys, tag Carl Moretti, make it happen. Janibek and I, no matter the deal. This is the fight I would love to show you. Turkey LL Sheik, PBC on Prime, Top Rank, Carl, Brad, you're still my family. I was raised under the Top Rank umbrella. Let's go, make it happen.
He's talking about Top Rank's Carl Moretti and Brad Goodman.
He's talking about a Janibek Alimkhanulai fight. And while I'm not against it, why the energy surge all of a sudden? Why is he now advocating for a fight that not that long ago he didn't seem too enthused about?
He didn't seem too pressed about it before.
I don't know with any certainty, that he was going to box on Gervonta Davis's undercard, but I do remember hearing a blurb that his next ring appearance was going to be on that show. I remember hearing that, I just don't know how true it is.
It was.
But that would explain why he is all of a sudden piping up and advocating for the Janibek Alimkhanalai fight, saying, whatever deal?
Okay.
So Janibek Alimkhanalai is currently under orders to fight his mandatory challenger via the WBO, Hamza Sheeraz. The WBO went from telling him to show cause why he should stay WBO champion to ordering him to fight Hamza Sheeraz as champion. Bear in mind, he just satisfied a mandatory for the IBF. Here comes another via the WBO. The kicker is, per the WBO, Janibek versus Sheeraz mandatory title fight negotiations extended through November 4th. Now, I would prefer to see Janibek Alimkhanalai unify titles with Carlos instead of just defending his against Hamza. Let Hamza go fight Denzel Bentley or somebody.
It's a good fight.
And let Janibek and Carlos settle up with each other on that Saudi Super Show set to go down in late February of next year. That makes more sense to me. There's a rumor going around that what the Saudis want to do is put Hamza in the ring with Janibek early next year. Make it a unification match. The middleweight division needs that a bit more, and Hamza could do with a little bit more seasoning.
Before he challenges for a world title, I'm not against him fighting Janibek straight away, but if I had it my way, let's get a unification first, and then let Hamza fight the winner.
Put Carlos Adames to good use. It seems that Carlos and his team are realizing the PBC can't do much more for them. And the only other champion at the weight, besides Janibek, Arislandi Lara, you ain't gonna make no money fighting him. There's no money in that fight.
Nope.
So does this now mean, with the cancellation of Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach, that the PBC is done for this year? It looks like it. It looks like they've already capped off this year with the Zoo versus Murtazaliev fight, and that's it.
They're done.
Thus, a good number of their fighters have the remainder of this year and the beginning of the next one with nothing to do. Carlos Adames among them. So I get the sense that's why he's all of a sudden piping up and pushing for the Alimkhanalai fight. I told you this is what it would come down to, that once the money dries up and the fight dates dry up, the fighters are going to go elsewhere because they've got bills to pay and families to feed, the same as everybody else, and they can't wait around for Al Heyman to sort them out.
And so you figure that if these rumors about a Saudi Super Show in February are true, you can get a unification match on the undercard.
The reason for it: I didn't expect PBC to make a play for the fight, and I didn't expect Top Rank to break the bank for it either.
Janibek versus Adames is a good fight. It's a good fight, but it's not a money fight. And the only guys out there willing to pay well above market value for a fight are the Saudis.
For Carlos, who's looking to make the most of his world title reign, they might be the only ones that can offer him the kind of money he's looking for. At least more than Top Rank would, because Top Rank wasn't going to break the bank for this guy.
Nope.
Can only hope that it's not too late to reach some kind of a step-aside agreement with Hamza to let the champions fight each other, then let him fight the winner. That would be the most ideal sequence in this scenario.
Hamza doesn't need to rush into that fight anyway.
That's what's going on in the middleweight division.